Kenjaku is one of the most sinister and calculating villains in Jujutsu Kaisen, a mastermind who has manipulated events from the shadows for over 1,000 years. But who exactly is Kenjaku? Where did he come from? And what was the true goal behind his 1,000-year plan? In this video, we're going to break down everything about Kenjaku, his origins, his timeline throughout history, his experiments, the creation of Yuji Itadori, the culling game, and the terrifying plan that could have changed the entire world of Jujutsu Kaisen. By the end of this video, you'll fully understand why Kenjaku might actually be the true mastermind of the entire series. So let's begin. To understand Kenjaku, we need to understand his backstory and timeline in Jujutsu Kaisen. During the Heian era, the golden age of Jujutsu sorcery, a mysterious sorcerer named Kenjaku first appeared. Unlike most sorcerers, Kenjaku possessed a terrifying ability. He could transfer his brain into other bodies, essentially stealing their identities and living through them. This technique allowed him to survive for centuries, constantly switching hosts while accumulating knowledge, cursed techniques, and influence. During this era, he encountered the most powerful sorcerer in history, Ryomen Sukuna. After Sukuna was defeated, Kenjaku played a crucial role in ensuring the King of Curses would never truly disappear. Instead of allowing Sukuna to die completely, Kenjaku helped preserve him by splitting Sukuna's soul into 20 cursed objects, his fingers. These fingers were indestructible, allowing Sukuna to survive for over 1,000 years and eventually return in the modern era. But Sukuna wasn't Kenjaku's only focus. At the time, Kenjaku had already begun pursuing his long-term objective involving Master Tengen. Every few centuries, Tengen must merge with a special human known as the Star Plasma Vessel in order to maintain stability and avoid evolving into something dangerous. Kenjaku repeatedly tried to prevent this merger, believing it was the key to his ultimate plan. However, every time he attempted to interfere, he was stopped by the legendary power of the Six Eyes, wielded by sorcerers of the Gojo lineage. For centuries, these Six Eyes users completely shut down Kenjaku's attempts. Centuries later, during the Meiji era in the late 1800s, Kenjaku took possession of the body of a powerful sorcerer named Noritoshi Kamo. While using Kamo's body, Kenjaku conducted some of the most disturbing experiments ever recorded. At a temple, he imprisoned the woman who had the rare ability to carry cursed spirit offspring. Kenjaku forced her into a horrific experiment. He made her become pregnant by cursed spirits 9 separate times. During each pregnancy, Kenjaku exed his own blood into the developing fetus. Each pregnancy ended with the fetus being aborted. Those 9 fetuses were then preserved as cursed objects known as the Cursed Womb Death Paintings, resulting in powerful beings such as Choso, Eso, and Kechizu. Because of these horrific experiments, the name Noritoshi Kamo became known throughout history as the most evil sorcerer who ever lived. But Kenjaku didn't care about the reputation. To him, it was just another step in a plan that would take centuries to complete. Roughly 400 years before the modern story, Kenjaku continued laying the groundwork for his future plans. At this point, he began recruiting powerful sorcerers from across history. One of the most important people he approached was Hajime Kashimo. Kashimo, obsessed with fighting powerful opponents, agreed to Kenjaku's proposal. Kenjaku turned him into a cursed object, allowing Kashimo to be reincarnated in the future. This would later become one of the foundations of the culling game. Around this same time, Kenjaku made a major breakthrough in his long battle against the Six Eyes. He successfully killed a Six Eyes user shortly after birth. However, the victory didn't last. Centuries later, the Six Eyes appeared again, alongside a new Star Plasma Vessel. This is when Kenjaku realized something important. The Six Eyes cannot truly be eliminated. Whenever one dies, another eventually appears. So instead of trying to kill them, Kenjaku began searching for something far more useful, a cursed object capable of sealing someone indefinitely. That object was the legendary special braid cursed tool known as the Prison Realm. Moving into the late 20th century, Kenjaku began preparing the final stage of his plan. During this time, he possessed the body of Kaori Itadori. While controlling her body, Kenjaku gave birth to a child, Yuji Itadori. Yuji's birth was not an accident. He was intentionally created by Kenjaku as part of a much larger plan, something I'll explain later in the video. Years later, in 2017, a major opportunity appeared. After the death of Suguru Geto, Kenjaku immediately took control of his body. This was incredibly important because Geto possessed one of the most powerful abilities in the series, cursed spirit manipulation. With this technique, Kenjaku could control thousands of cursed spirits. Around this time, Kenjaku also managed to obtain the object he had been searching for. By 2012, he had successfully acquired the Prison Realm. This was the final piece needed to neutralize the greatest obstacle to his plan, Satoru Gojo. Kenjaku's centuries-long preparation finally paid off during the Shibuya incident in October 2018. Using the body of Suguru Geto, Kenjaku set a massive trap. When Satoru Gojo arrived to stop the chaos, he appeared in the body of Gojo's former best friend, Geto. That brief moment of emotional shock was all Kenjaku needed. Using the Prison Realm, he successfully sealed Gojo away. And this was a crucial detail. Kenjaku did not kill Gojo. By sealing him alive instead, he prevented the universe from producing another Six Eyes user. With Gojo removed from the board, the single greatest threat to Kenjaku's plan was finally gone. Now, after more than 1,000 years of preparation, Kenjaku was finally ready to begin the next stage, the culling game. Now that the strongest sorcerer in the world had been removed from the battlefield, Kenjaku could finally move forward with the plan he had been building for over 1,000 years. Kenjaku wanted to force the evolution of humanity itself. His ultimate goal was to merge the immortal sorcerer Master Tengen with the entire population of Japan. But to understand why this is so dangerous, we first need to understand what Tengen actually is. Normally, Tengen maintains stability by merging with a star plasma vessel every few hundred years. This merger resets Tengen's body and prevents them from evolving into something beyond human. However, that cycle was broken during the events involving Riko Amanai. When Riko Amanai died before the merger could happen, Tengen was forced to continue existing without a vessel. Over time, this caused Tengen to evolve beyond humanity. At that point, Tengen was no longer fully human, and that instability created the exact opportunity Kenjaku had been waiting for. Kenjaku planned to recreate the same type of merger that normally happens between Tengen and a single star plasma vessel, but instead of merging with just one person, he wanted Tengen to merge with millions of people at once, specifically the entire non-sorcerer population of Japan. If this happened, all those humans would essentially fuse together through cursed energy and become one massive cursed entity. In other words, Kenjaku intended to transform the population of Japan into a single colossal cursed spirit. This would force cursed energy to evolve to a level the world had never seen before. According to Kenjaku, this process would optimize cursed energy to its most refined and powerful state. It would be the next stage of evolution for humanity, whether people wanted it or not. Of course, a merger on that scale requires an insane amount of cursed energy, and that's exactly why Kenjaku created the culling game. The culling game had several purposes. First, it forced sorcerers and reincarnated players to fight and kill each other, generating massive amounts of cursed energy. Second, it awakened cursed techniques in ordinary humans, turning them into new sorcerers. And finally, it acted as a preparation stage for the massive ritual Kenjaku was planning. To make this possible, Kenjaku expanded the barrier system of the culling game across all of Japan. This effectively turned the entire country into one giant ritual site. Every fight inside the culling game produced more cursed energy, and once enough cursed energy had been generated, Kenjaku would trigger the final merger between Tengen and humanity, a forced evolution that would completely reshape the world. If Kenjaku had successfully completed the merger between humanity and Master Tengen, the consequences would have been unimaginable. The most immediate result would likely be the creation of a completely new entity. Fans often refer to this theoretical being as the merger god. That means millions of humans would essentially become one unified cursed being. The resulting entity would likely surpass even Ryoma and Sukuna in terms of raw power. It would potentially become the strongest being in the entire Jujutsu Kaisen world. Technically, the consequences would almost certainly go far beyond Japan. A being on that level might become impossible to control, and if it decided to expand beyond Japan, it could easily become a global catastrophe. At that point, humanity would be facing something closer to a natural disaster or a godlike monster.
Now, at this point, the real question is, why is Kenjaku doing all of this? To answer that, I've collaborated with another anime YouTuber, Anime Cardio, who will take over this section.
What makes Kenjaku so disturbing is the reason behind his actions. After hearing about a 1,000-year plan that could potentially destroy humanity, you might expect a grand ambition, something like ruling the world or becoming a god, but the truth is much stranger. Kenjaku never planned anything beyond the merger itself. For him, merging humanity with Master Tengen was the final objective, not a step towards something greater. Throughout his 1,000-year life, Kenjaku treated the world like a giant laboratory. Every experiment he carried out, from creating the Death Womb paintings to orchestrating the culling game, was driven purely by curiosity about what would happen if humanity merged with Tengen. He didn't intend to control the resulting entity or wield its power. He simply wanted to see the results, even if it meant sacrificing an entire country, even if it meant sacrificing himself. And this is exactly what makes him so unsettling. Unlike villains driven by ideology or power, Kenjaku often approaches world-ending schemes with an almost casual attitude. We see it repeatedly throughout the story, when he spends time relaxing on the beach with the disaster curses in chapter 16, when he casually plays poker with Mahito and Choso in chapter 62, when he sits in a park blowing bubbles alongside children while calmly discussing the plan to trap Satoru Gojo with the disaster curses in chapter 84, or when he casually plays mahjong with them in chapter 90. Even when explaining the purpose of the merger to Choso, Kenjaku chooses to do it inside the cinema in chapter 202, meaning he went through the effort of manipulating the barrier just to stage the conversation like a movie screening. And during his fight with Choso in chapter 207, after being struck with piercing blood, he simply spins the skull cap of his head like a propeller to redirect the damage. Moments like these reveal something deeply unsettling about Kenjaku. For him, the suffering of millions isn't the weight of a difficult decision, it's just another experiment, another observation, another result he's curious to see.
But this raises an important question. Where does Yuji Itadori fit into Kenjaku's 1,000-year plan? From the start of the story, Yuji shows abilities far beyond the normal human: immense physical strength, extreme durability, and most importantly, the ability to contain real men Sukuna. Later it's revealed that none of this was accidental. Yuji was deliberately created by Kenjaku to solve a problem that had existed for over 1,000 years. No human had ever been able to host Sukuna's soul without dying instantly from the overwhelming, almost poisonous cursed energy. To achieve this, Kenjaku possessed the body of Kaori Itadori and had a child with Jin Itadori, carefully engineering Yuji to have a unique constitution capable of surviving Sukuna. As a result, Yuji became the first human strong enough to contain the King of Curses without immediately dying. This allowed Sukuna to exist in the modern world again, turning Yuji into the catalyst for the chaos that followed. In many ways, Yuji was never meant to be the hero. He was the spark that ignited the entire chain of events.
And when you look at everything Kenjaku has done throughout the series, it really shows just how incredible the writing behind his character is. Most villains usually have a clear motivation: power, revenge, control, or domination. But Kenjaku is completely different. His motivations are so strange and unpredictable that even the audience struggles to fully understand him. Is he a scientist, a madman, or someone who has simply lived so long that human life no longer means anything to him? That level of mystery is what makes Kenjaku one of the most fascinating antagonists in modern anime.
Also, this video was done in collaboration with Anime Cardio, who's also an anime YouTuber and makes excellent deep dive videos with great knowledge about mangas. He really knows how to break down complex storylines and characters in a way that's easy to understand and engaging. Make sure to check his channel out. The link is in the description.
But Kenjaku's plan didn't just stop at the merger. One of the biggest parts of his 1,000-year scheme was the brutal battle royale known as the culling game. So if you want to understand the entire story of the culling game, every colony, every major fight, and how it all connects to Kenjaku's plan, make sure to check out my full video where I break down the entire culling game arc from start to finish. Thanks for watching.